And I'd also like to point out that those two young women coming from two different schools in the Valley really exemplify the best that education can do in helping to lay the foundations for peace, and that's getting people from different backgrounds with different ideas into the same place and teaching and fostering opportunities for conversations and for listening, and encouraging people to go outside of their familiar groups.
Yeah, Becky and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, and she brought up this idea that, schools are a unique environment in that they really bring kids from diverse peer groups together in one place. At the park, different places, kids can self-segregate as they might want to based on games, interests, families, neighborhoods. But, the beauty of the school site, as Becky was sharing, is that it brings everybody together at one space, one small little recreation of our village, if you will, and we have to figure out how to get along. And so it provides, in that sense, a really important and very unique opportunity to provide the foundations for a peaceful life and how to get along. So then the question is, what are the ideal ways in which we can grow this way of being with these students at these locations, right? Because it's an opportunity we don't want to miss, and I think in a lot of ways there are great things happening in that, but there are some missed opportunities as well for teaching peace at our schools across the country.
Yeah, I think it's easy for the adults to get caught up on deadlines and requirements and all the things that we're trying to fit in. And we need to just be mindful of the fact that we are there because of the children. And if we keep the children at the forefront, then that can help us to be aware of what we're doing, the way that we speak to each other, the way that we speak to the students, the way that we intervene or guide when things are maybe going off with a group of students. But I think we really have the opportunity and the responsibility to model appropriate relationships and appropriate ways to disagree. We don't need to have a big kumbaya moment necessarily every day at school where everybody is saying the same thing. But what we do need to do is help the students to be able to disagree with one another on ideas without diminishing each other as people. And we have the opportunity to do that every single day, but that means we have to be doing that too.
Yeah, and that's if you take a look at the state curriculum, there might be little pieces in there, and that require that we provide opportunities for young people to work together in groups to do projects, but it's certainly not the foundation of the curriculum coming down from the state. And so I think the pressure of a teacher forced to consider the test at the end of the year, how that's going to affect their school, where they're at with their standards at that moment in time, sometimes an opportunity might arise to work through a conflict, and maybe there's an opportunity for some nonviolent communication practice or some scenarios, some role playing, even just opportunities for the teacher themselves to model and take time with their students if a struggle arises. And the pressure of the standards and the timeline and the test sometimes get in the way and make a teacher doubt whether or not they have the time for this. And so I've known at times when I was in the conventional classroom, I definitely felt like I want to deal with this, I want to spend a little more time, and I feel this pressure of I've got to move this thing along, right? So there's an educator, and I'm going to get the name at some point for you, up out of Berkeley, and they share that we could really benefit by maybe taking the standards that we expect kids to know and cutting them in half, and getting rid of half of them, and it doesn't matter which half is what they say, as the joke at the end. But I think if we see teachers as people who care about kids first, and we have learner-centered environments instead of environments that are teacher-centered or state-based curriculum centered, we can start to work on these issues as they arise. And there needs to be some support from that in the district. And I know that currently in the district, Becky, could you tell us there's some things happening right now in Ojai
I'm
Unified?
really excited about some of the new things. So, well, and they're not new, not at all new, but they're new as district policy. So, all of the schools are beginning at various stages of implementing restorative justice practices, which include dialogue circles. We've been working on that at Chaparral for a couple years. This is the first year that we've implemented the dialogue circles into every classroom, so that all students are participating in that at least once a week. I think there was some hesitation from some of the adults, that loss of control and not knowing where it was going to go. And the first time we did it, some of the kids were a little bit silly. They're teenagers, but they ultimately really took it seriously, and in terms of fostering peace, what it really does is allow those students who are really dialed in and they're aware of everything that's happening, but they're not speaking up, and they may get ignored when they try to. They have the opportunity to speak while everybody else is listening, and the students who are always the first to jump in with their opinion or their comment have the opportunity to hear what everybody else is thinking as well. And so our hope, and what I see happening now, is that the students are getting to know each other better. They're getting to know those students that they really hadn't paid attention to, and they are stepping in more. If somebody is being teased, then somebody who maybe was in their first period class and has talked to them in the circles will step up and stand with them. And that was really our hope for that, is to give all of the students a voice, and to have them truly believe and feel that they are listened to and they are heard, and that their opinion matters. And that's happening at all the schools in the district now.
Yeah.
Long time coming, but it's coming.
This is really it's good work. Our new superintendent, Tiffany Morris, is really spearheading some of this innovation, and the teachers too. I think the bringing in the toolkit came from the people. The teachers are working with the kids, seeing the need for some of these toolkits for social, emotional interaction. And I don't think it can be overstated how important this is. We obviously see the high stakes of the dialogues that we're having these days, and the inability to have sometimes these very difficult conversations with people who may be have an oppositional point of view. But we're losing, it feels like, that opportunity to be able to engage in civil discourse. And if we lose that, I think we're losing our ability to guide our democracy. So this work of how do we help young people engage peacefully and develop those tools, I think should be primary in the exchange of knowledge, or the exchange of skills about science, atoms, the nature of the Revolutionary War. These things, to me, should be secondary, because if you don't do the other stuff, it really doesn't matter what you know in your head. If you can't get along with other people, you can't enjoy a good life, and that's going to hamper a lot of other opportunities for you. And I would add to this too, Becky, that the more the social interaction and support is in place for kids, the more that they feel supported, the more that they have relatedness, the more that they have some autonomy in being in the center of their learning choices, the better they're going to do. The better. So if you want to take a real crass, like, it really matters about the test because I'm a dad and I'm really afraid of my kid not being able to have opportunity and get into the right school, which is really what's behind a lot of this for us as parents, right? Fear. We're afraid for our kids. What are their opportunities going to be? And so we push them, even though we may not want to, but we just want them to have the right opportunity. But if you take care of the need of the organism to be in peaceful coexistence with other kids, with other people, in a not hierarchical, not competition-based, who's got the A, who's got the B, who's got the stickers on the board, you're going to actually have deeper retention of information and meaningful learning that's going to last. And so that's, if you want to take it back to that, it's going to benefit the learning as well.
I think also if we make use of our community partners and our community as a whole as part of our classroom, so that the work that the students are doing in the content areas has an identifiable context to them, have them doing real work, have them making real contributions to the community, have them gathering real information from their community to find out what the issues are, what needs to be done, and doing some of that problem solving, respecting them as people to have ideas and opinions that really can have an impact and make a difference. I think comes right down to just that respect for the person can allow the peace to happen, because they're not feeling afraid or threatened or marginalized.
Yes.
I think that really supports peace in the community as a whole.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, that is so essential to give them meaningful work in their community, so they feel like they're involved in something that matters, and they are also informing us as well in the community. It goes both ways. We are going to benefit as adults in this community if we let some young people in our environments from the schools, or we go into the schools to share the work that we're doing, instead of this artificial sequestration, behind a gate, behind, bars and the whole thing. We do need to bring the kids back into the community. That's going to be much healthier.
On a simple note, how many of you have ever handed your cell phone or computer to a teenager? I know I have.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not all they know.
Right. They know a lot more than we think they do. Indeed. So we invite you to support some of these new innovative programs that are happening at OUSD. We invite you to really check in with the young people in your life and check in with their learning environments, and make sure that their wishes are being respected as well. And for us adults working with kids, to continue to kind of flatten out the relationship in the sense, that doesn't have to be, this strongly authoritarian type of interaction, and to remember the kids are people too, right?
Any questions for us? No.
Well, I'm
Go.
trying to. Another thing, yes, Chris.
So how much is nonviolent communication being used for you or in the school?
Yeah, I'll go first,
Okay.
because, in our learning environment up the hill at Rock Tree Sky, we consider ourselves student-centered learning environment, and in every room we have the 4 simple stages of NVC, and we use it ourselves. If sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes I might find myself in some sort of conflict with a learner about a disagreement about something, and so we are in the practice to go to either another mentor or a teen and say, hey, will you run this nonviolent communication protocol with me? And it's simply what happened, not they were mean, right? Without judgment. What happened? Just the details. How are you feeling? What do you need? What agreements can we make? And so just the practice and the repetition and the support of that sheet that we can pull down off the wall to do that, that's really important for us, right?
I think in Ojai Unified it varies from school to school and maybe class to class. It's been really important. At Chaparral, we get a lot of students who've had negative experiences on other campuses, and they're kind of ready for the conflict. And so it's important for the adults not to feed into that, and for us to be able to take a breath. And I know for myself, when a student is very, very angry or trying to push a teacher's buttons very first thing in the morning, something happened before they got to school. And so the issue isn't why are you pushing that teacher's buttons? The issue is what happened. What do you need? How are you doing?
Yeah.
And you know, we're trying to do that school-wide, not because of any buzzwords or anything, but because it works.
Yeah.
And if we do that, and we do that regularly and do that well, then we don't have the big conflicts that are building up through the day. Same thing with conflicts amongst students. If I can get them to agree to come in and we use a talking piece and get them to speak and to listen to each other, and as Jim was saying, not they were mean to me, but from your perspective, what happened? From your perspective, what do you need in order to feel okay? And they really have amazed me that they are much better at solving their problems than I am, as good as I think I might be at
Right.
figuring out what's been happening and what needs to happen. The students do a much better job of doing that on their own if they're given the space.
Yeah.
And if they're willing, that is a key part. Not everybody, when there's a conflict, is willing to sit with the person they have a conflict with.
Right. It may take time, and it has to be, the teacher has to be, the learners have to be willing, and we as teachers have to feel like we have the space. And I would say to anybody in earshot that you have an opportunity to help bring this change about. You know, I would say going to the school board meetings, for me in the last 2 years, almost every school board meeting, because I've had some business in front of the board, has been a really eye-opening experience as to what a great opportunity it is to affect change at your local level. So if the school board knows that the community of Ojai values peaceful dialogue and practicing with youth and teachers especially, how to speak kindly, how to run social justice circles, or restorative justice circles, it can make a difference. But we have to let them know that this is what we value, and that this may actually be more important than on any given day than solving what 3x plus 2 is equal to, honestly.